Hello, bookworms, bibliophiles, and lovers of all things literature. Welcome to the next chapter of the Braless Book Guild podcast, where we discard our bras and hop into history to talk about books both published and unpublished. We are your hosts, Jenna.
Hi, guys.
Marissa.
Hello.
And I'm Megan. All right. As we mentioned in our intro, well, my bad. Sorry, guys. I did this out of order. What are you all drinking?
We'll start with drinking, right?
Yeah. So let's do Marissa first.
I am drinking the Mint Medley by, I don't remember who. Bigelow probably or something like that. But it's just a herbal mint tea.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
How about you, Jenna?
I'm drinking Marissa's Blackberry Citrus by Bigelow.
Again.
Yes, again. Because I'm coming down from a cold, so that's why I have a stuffy nose. And I figured the extra vitamin C and zinc would help with that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And I think it has elderberry in it, right? I don't know, something like that.
It's not good that you're a sicko.
No, it's not. But it is good that I am drinking a tea that should help with that. What about you, Megan?
I am drinking, I think it was called Very Berry Cherry.
Ooh.
And that's by Celestial Seasoning, so technically not a tea, but it's all a tea, right? So, as we mentioned in our intro, we are going to hop into some history today. We thought it'd be fun to talk about like the history of young adult literature because it is a very interesting topic and one that, you know, we've all been young adults. We've all read young adult books. We talk about a lot of young adults books on this podcast. So we thought it'd be fun to kind of, you know, learn a bit and teach some people who may not know.
I think young adult it's pretty safe to say that young adult is pretty much where a lot of love of literature starts.
I agree.
Because, I mean, yeah, you might, as a kid, like picture books, but most kids like picture books. And if you don't have a love for literature, it falls off pretty quickly after that. So I think that young adult is usually where your love for literature starts.
I agree. I agree. I think, yes, because you have like middle grade, and then you obviously have adult books, but it's, you know, considered relatively new that young adult, the actual category of young adult, is only about like 60 years old.
Yeah.
Compared to like how old the written word is. So
yeah, I think Megan and I were talking about how we kind of like delved deep into the history of this and got a lot of facts. And for me, when I looked back, there are earlier accounts of young adult, but young adult didn't actually become a term until The Outsiders, but was the first kind of book that brought about the young adult category. And people debate because it's not technically a genre because there's genres in young adult. It's an age range.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's the one thing I do really think about with young adult is that it is just an age range for it. So it's like your main character, or at least the main people in your book, are going to be young adults, literally.
Teenagers.
Exactly. So technically, arguing that you could say like Romeo and Juliet's young adult.
That's what I was going to say. We could even go far back as like Shakespeare times to talk about young adult literature because Romeo and Juliet, I mean, Juliet's 13 and Romeo's 16. And there is a lot of debate on did he write it, William Shakespeare, did he write it?
Did he write it?
Yeah, there you go.
Just cut off right there.
Did he write it as like a warning of being like, oh, these whippersnappers these days, you know, they're just off getting married and falling in love too quickly? Or was it supposed to be serious? Like, was it supposed to be a farce or a serious? I don't know. Yeah. There's a lot of debate out there.
There's a lot of debate on Shakespeare in general.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's very debatable.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, I found that, like, a lot of what I looked up was that people say the first young adult novel is The Outsiders, but they also said that the first book that was written and published explicitly for teenagers was The 17th Summer by Maureen Daly in 1942, and it's because she was a teenager at the time.
Oh, okay.
So that's when a lot of people kind of will go back and be like, well, no, that's actually the first young adult novel, but it's, I think, only because she was a teenager at the time, and it was written as a teenager for teenagers.
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting. It's interesting how new young adult is still.
Right.
So,
yeah, as a specific like genre, that was recognized by publishers. It wasn't until the 90s.
Yeah.
But going back super, super far, even before the 1900s, there were a lot of authors that like appealed to the age group. So the age group of the young adult is considered between like 12 to 19 or 12 to like 21-ish. That's the age group that they consider. It shifts depending on who you're talking to or what you're looking up.
Yeah.
But in the 1900s, they noticed that a lot of people of those ages were reading adult books. So a lot of books written by Jonathan Swift, Jane Austen, Charles Dickens, and even Mark Twain. So, you know, you have these young kids. I mean, I'm pretty sure all of us in high school had a very, very high reading level compared to what high school usually reads. So we could have been a part of that group of people that were like, I want to read Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
And guess what? There's no sex in Pride and Prejudice.
Well,
technically there is.
But,
yeah.
But not.
But not. It's not on the page.
Yeah.
It's insinuated, I guess. But anyway, so a lot of, you know, that age range, should we just call them young adults? A lot of the young adults were reading those. But I find now, especially recently, it has kind of flip-flopped in that people within their 30s, aka us, and a lot of, you know, consumers of young adult are a lot older. And they are not technically within the 11. Oh, Jenna.
I have stats, guys.
Oh my gosh.
Here I am with my trivia. According to a study conducted in 2023, 55% of young adult literature consumers were over 18 years of age. 78% of adult consumers purchased with the intent to read themselves. And of these adult buyers, 51% were between the ages of 30 and 44.
Yeah, there you go.
So, yeah.
And I just think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That, you know, we're not alone out there.
Yeah. I think, so what I found a lot of when I was looking up specifically, like, what categorizes young adult novels, is that young adult was written with the main character as a teenager.
Yes.
So if they're under the age of 20, usually, but a lot of them said 12 to 18, and I'd say that we can all agree that a lot of times the young adult novels are the 16-year-old.
Yes.
16 seems to be the sweet spot for young adults.
16 and 17, yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, that was kind of like the turning point for, I think, young adult novels, like, is that when they started writing books where the protagonist was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that one of the things that I read about it, which I thought was really cool and really interesting, is that, like, people all have, like, theories on why adults still enjoy young adult literature. And a lot of times what was coming up was people were saying that because teenage years are such a transformative year for us, like, there's so much more believable things that can happen outside of that realm, whereas, like, as an adult you kind of fall into this, like, world, this is the world, you know, and so it's like you're able to kind of suspend belief a little bit more.
Yeah.
And a little bit more like, oh, okay, we're forgiving on, like, crazy things happening to teenagers because it's such a transformative year. And also it's such memorable years for us that, like, I mean, we're in our 30s and I still remember high school, not perfectly. There's a lot of things that I'm sure I've blacked out, but, like, I still remember things happening in high school, and I'm just like, wow, I can't believe that was so long ago. I can't believe that I'm coming up on my 20-year high school reunion. You know, It doesn't feel like it seemed that long ago. And, like, I think that no matter how old you get, you can still remember being a teenager.
And I think that kind of touches on nostalgia.
Yeah.
Like, I was just talking to you about Once Upon a Broken Heart and how reading that series really opened my eyes to, like, I would have loved this in high school. Like, this would have been my all-time favorite series, and I would have probably made that series my personality in high school. But we had, like, Daughters of the Moon.
Yep.
We had Sweep. We have a whole episode where we talk about
what
all
we
of our
did.
favorite episodes.
I just realized how long it's been since Marissa's talked.
Our favorite books, yes.
You don't want me to talk right now because I'm in a very dark place in my mind. So.
it just, like, all of a sudden I'm sitting here, like, me and Megan are going back and forth, and Marissa's just quietly in her corner over there, and I'm, like, talking, I'm, like, looking at Marissa, and then I made, like, a face, and she, like, looked at me, and I was just like, it just occurred to me how long it's been since she said something.
I made a face because you moved your, like, mic to get some food or something, but I don't think you actually grabbed the food because you were too... I don't know. Felt like you couldn't grab it or something.
Yeah,
So
I went to go get my
face.
hot tea, and I went to go take a sip, and I was like, this might still be too hot, and
Yep.
just put it back down.
That's exactly what I did a couple minutes ago, where I was like, I'm thirsty. I'm gonna have some tea. Oh, it's quite hot.
Yeah, that's why I'm holding mine on my lap to try to, even out the temperature.
Even
There
out.
you go.
So let's hop into one of the first, like, well-known books that was well-loved by most age ranges and was considered, like, one of the first YA books, is the Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. And that's mostly because the themes of it are about growing up and accepting responsibility.
Oh.
So even though I think Alice was supposed to only be, like, 10. I
Yeah,
don't
she
think
was
she was
pretty
supposed to
young.
be a teenager.
I think it was probably, if it were to come out now, I think it would probably be put more towards mid-grade.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think she was young. I don't remember exactly how old she was.
Yeah, I don't remember either. But if you look at, like, a lot of the movies that have been portrayed, they're usually, like, she looks like she's 15
Yeah.
or 16. So, but yeah, so that one is also one that features the themes. And that's another thing that is discussed a lot about young adult, is specifically the themes of, like, growing up and maturity and going through puberty and accepting yourself and all of those things. So that is also, like, another kind of category that kind of makes young adult what it is.
I think that goes off of what Jenna was saying, where, like, people go back to it because that's a time where you can kind of accept that stuff a bit
Yeah.
more. So it goes back to that, like, remembering times of change and whatnot, where I'm saying this like I go back and read a lot of young adult. I don't like reading young adult that much. Something I learned when I was trying to do the little bit of research that I did do when we first decided this.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's just something that I think if I do go back to young adult, it would be analyzing that theme of going past the, like, oh, it's just the chosen one teenager that's
Right.
out to save the world. It's like learning how you change and how things are going to progress and the different changes you go through to become a different person.
Right.
Right.
And that kind of goes off to a book that you recommend, which I do consider young adult, but The Lies We Tell
Lies
Ourselves.
We Tell Ourselves it is young adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that one is so much change. Like, there's so much growth and just, like, character development in both. What are, like, the three like plots? It's always like man versus nature, man versus God,
Man versus self.
man versus
self.
machine.
It's the internal, external, and spiritual
Yeah.
conflicts.
And so that one I feels like kind of delves into all of them,
Yeah,
which I thought was a really good, not man versus machine, but, you know,
yeah,
but, like, the I think that one, we mention it a lot, but it is such just an all around good story. And I think that's one that we could dive into so deeply on, you know, just the author and how it was written and, you know, what it means.
I
So-
think it just hits so many points. I
Yes.
think that's what it is. It hits so many points of, I mean, realism, of racism, of sexuality, of learning yourself, of growing up and not accepting what your parents say as truth, as the only truth,
of religion.
of religion.
Yeah.
And it takes a point in our history, which was so hard to be, well, so hard to be a woman, so hard to be not white, and so hard to be not straight.
Yeah.
And it takes a character that fits all of those, or two characters that fit all of those, really, except for one of them is white. But
One character that fits all of those, one character that fits two of those.
yeah, and loves that person, and really makes them confront that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say that I don't like reading a lot of young adult. Maybe even just lately, I don't like reading young adult right now. yes, I do highly recommend that book, and there's a lot of young adult books that I do recommend, but I just don't think I'm in that mindset of going back.
Yeah.
And that's for personal psychological reasons that I won't bring up on the podcast. But it's just one of those things where I think a lot of people can relate to things still in young adult novels, and that's why they go back to it. Or they need to escape where they're at now, so they go back to a time that they do understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm feeling like I want to escape everything right now because the world is bleak.
I think that there's also this idea that like when you're a teenager, when you're young, you have this idea that like adulthood is going to be so different, and then you get to adulthood and it's like,
it sucks.
yeah, it sucks. It's not what you anticipate. It's a lot of go to work and come home,
Pay
and
the bills
and do the same thing. And it's like when you get to read these books where something different happens, it takes you back to a time where you aren't stuck in the mediocrity of everyday life.
That's why I want to read the books about the adults that get out of that rut. I want to read the Adventures of Amina El-Sarafi and all of T.J. Klune's books of just going into the fantasy world.
Which is what speaks to
escaping.
fantasy world to us, I think.
Yeah.
That's where even adult fantasy, I mean, I'd say that I focus more on new adult. I definitely don't go as deep into young adult, but I think that that's where it allows you to go back to that time when there was the possibility of anything. Although now as an adult, the older I get, the more I'm just like, oh, child, sit back and let the adults work.
That's my thing, is thinking about young adult books of being like, I can't do it. You're 16, and all I think is like, oh, you're 16. You're so naive.
As Ariel would say, Daddy, I'm not a child.
Exactly. I think also, like, as I get older, the harder part for me, too, is that more and more I have friends that have kids that age or getting close to that age. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you're a baby. Like, I remember you being a baby. And so, like, to think of them in these semi-adult scenarios, I'm like, no, I'm sorry. You can't save the world. You're 16.
I don't know. I think there are exceptions to it for sure. Of like, you know, there are the more mature teenagers out there in real life and in those novels that you can be like, okay, like, yeah, I get it. You're mature. You're like, you've had to be an adult. You are an adult. Like, especially like teenagers that have been through places of like, I didn't have the opportunity to be a teenager. I had to take care of my family, or I had to do this, and they became that adult. So, not to say, like, oh, you're 16, so I completely write you off and think you're discredited.
Yeah.
But when I'm reading a book and it does the whole, I have such a hard life because I'm 16 years old.
And I have to choose between this white boy or this other slightly more tan white boy.
The blonde one or the dark-haired one?
Blue eyes or brown?
I don't know. I just think there's, like, the lies we tell ourselves. Like, I think those were mature teenagers that still had teenager tendencies, but it felt very real to me.
Yeah.
And I think that also partly comes from, like, you know, and no offense to any of the authors, because some of the authors are great, but, like, some authors that are older don't know how to write teenagers, so they write the bratty teenager to try to make it relatable to teenagers, and it makes it unrelatable to me.
I feel like it's been a hot minute since I've read some of those, unless I read one that has come out before like 2017, I feel like. But I'm also very lenient with my characters, and I'll just be like, I mean, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But that also goes into, in the 1970s was like a huge stepping stone, mostly because Judy Blume hopped on the scene, and her most famous book for young adult was Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And that like really, really dives into like such taboo topics at the time of like, it has masturbation, menstruation, teen sex, and birth control, and even like death in it. And it talks about that. I actually haven't read the book, but now I want to, because it feels like this is such a big stepping stone for what brought YA to what it is today. Because if you think about other YA books of like the time, so you had like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, Catcher in the Rye, A Wrinkle in Time, none of those I mean, they're all fantasy. Well, Catcher in the Rye isn't.
Catcher in the Rye isn't, but it's just an annoying book.
So also in the 70s, they started doing the books like Go Ask Alice, too, which
That's
was
from
written
the
by...
70s?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So
Wow.
that was, which dealt with drugs and suicide and horrible, heavy topics. But teenagers were relating to it. So that's what teenagers are reading about, these problems with peer pressure and with drugs and with alcohol and with sex, and they're actually being able to be like, yes, this is real life. This is what we actually are dealing with. But yeah, it was actually the 70s were considered the first golden age of the young adult novels.
I very much disagree because I thought it was like the late 90s, early 2000s. But I like looking at the research, it really opened my eyes to what we had. Or
that's
what
also because that's your childhood.
Exactly.
For the late 90s, early 2000s. So that's why.
That's right. And don't get me started on K-pop. When I first got into K-pop, that was 100% the golden age of K-pop. And nothing else compares. Like even now, nah. Too much drama in the K-pop world right now.
Too much K-drama in the K-pop.
That's so good.
I wish that's what we could name the episode.
That could be our teaser, but also it will have nothing to do with their stupid thing. Anyway, chef's kiss, Marissa.
Thanks.
All right. I feel like if we had grown up in the 70s and Are You There, Margaret? Or Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I feel like that would have been like the books that you whisper about in school. Like, oh my God, did you read this book? It has sex in it. Did you guys hear about that? She talks about her period.
It's funny because I remember in high school reading Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging.
You talked about that, yeah.
And I thought like that was such a like, oh my gosh. And even though like I was reading adult novels that had like sexual scenes, it just seemed like such a wow, it's talking about thongs. And obviously like we're talking about underwear in the novel title. Like it was such a thing. And snogging, even though snogging in the US like is not the word that we'd use, but
it's because
those, like,
it was a teenager doing it
right,
rather than an adult doing it. So you can read adults going off and having sex and all of this stuff and it's fine, but once you read about a teenager doing it, you're like, oh, what?
Right.
Even though it happens all the time.
Totally.
I did not believe it did in high school. I was so innocent because I wasn't doing it, so obviously nobody else is. And I remember people talking about it being like, oh yeah, oh my God, they're having sex. And I'm like, no, they're not. No, they're not. Who does that?
It's funny because you were talking about Go Ask Alice being like that, like hush hush of like,
yeah.
Or not Go Ask, well, that and like the Judy Blume book and everything. And I read this post somewhere that somebody said of like, the goal isn't to write the next great novel. The goal is to write the next novel that America tries to ban.
Yes. Like, that could be a whole other episode of us just talking about banned books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one, like, I'm pretty sure at that time when that book came out, it was banned from a lot of places.
That was, I was kind of talking a little bit off air when I was talking about how I started doing research on this. Guys, I did research. I did homework.
We're so proud of you.
I did homework this time.
We're so proud of you, Jenna.
Given I did it very last minute, but I did homework, guys.
You did it. That's what counts.
But one of the librarians who was kind of who spearheaded the young adult genre section, coming up tailoring young adult, was talking about how hard it was, how librarians were trying to get teenagers into books, but parents were so uncomfortable with and like with the topics that these books are talking about. So it's like they weren't allowed to carry some of these books, and they didn't want to, like advertise them to teenagers because it didn't want to be like, let's talk about sex and drugs and alcohol. So it was like, it was kind of a hard thing for them to balance.
Yeah.
But that's what teachers just want to read, guys. Or they did.
And even now, I will say, I see, because I'm on a bunch of bookish groups on Facebook, and a lot of people will come in and say, hey, I have a son who is 12 years old, but he's higher level, he's read all Percy Jackson, he's read all of Harry Potter, he's read all of these books. but I want him to read something that doesn't have, you know, any steamy bits in it, but still has like the fun character driven stuff that he would enjoy. So do you guys have any recommendations for that? And there's a lot of that going around. And then also, you know, you have I feel like growing up, a lot of the main characters in the young adult books that we read were men, or boys, I should say.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until Tamora Pierce or Garth Nix, my favorite author, that I found that, you know, oh, hey, look, girls can kick butt. They can be like these really awesome warriors who go on these adventures. But that's not to say, like, you know, the other books that I read, the characters weren't bad. I was just like, oh, this is fun and exciting.
Yeah.
I think that speaks a lot to the type of book that you were reading at the time. Because I was kind of all over the board, where there was some where it was the adventure and it was the fantasy. But really, like, I didn't really get into Percy Jackson because it was a boy. I didn't care about that. And I liked Harry Potter, but Harry Potter was well talked about. And as we'll talk about in other podcasts, I got into the fan fiction and followed the girls sometimes. And, like, yeah, I liked Harry Potter. I liked his story. And I've read that a few times. But really, when it got down to it, like, I wanted to focus on girl books. So I did have some of the, later on, we had the Hunger Games, the Tamora Pierce, those ones. But before that, I ended up reading a lot of high school drama books that weren't the fun adventures, because those are the books that had girls in them.
The girls in it, yeah.
So I ended up with the Angus songs and Full Frontal Snogging and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Marissa, I felt like you were going to say something and I just sidetracked you.
It's fine.
You had things to say, though. It was a quippy one-liner. I know it.
So now that we've hit the 2000s, so we've kind of like gone through the little bit of history, but now that we've hit the 2000s, we had, like Marissa had mentioned, we have Hunger Games, and then we have that whole shift into dystopian. And you can definitely tell that there's like shifts in trends over the years, because the 90s was like a lot about like magic, or then you had your contemporary as well. But in the 2000s, then it went very much into dystopian. So we had Divergent, Hunger Games, plenty of others.
Oh yeah, once the Hunger Games took off, it's funny how, like, when something becomes popular, suddenly there's no shortage of those type of books, which is cool, because when you're interested in that type of book, it's easy to, like, go down a rabbit hole and read a lot of books similar. It sucks when you're like, I'm totally in the mood for this one specific thing, and there's only 2 books out that have this for me. So it was kind of cool that way, but also you have no shortage of it. Like, it does really follow a trend.
Right. And I mean, you could go into any Barnes & Noble or practically any bookstore out there now, and they have a whole entire young adult literature section.
Right.
Back when we were in high school and we had Borders, we didn't really, it was like, I guess it was like teen.
Yeah.
But it was like mixed in with middle grade, and it wasn't until late high school that it had its own, and there was that huge explosion of really strong and prominent.
Right about the time Twilight came out.
Yes, Twilight was a very big pioneer in
when Twilight came out. You started to really get the young adult sections and stuff like that, and that's when, and then you started going into the Hunger Games and that kind of area. But that's when you actually started to really feel like, okay, there's an actual section for these type of books,
right? And now it even includes like manga, and manhwa, which is the Korean version of manga. It has there's
literally did not know that.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
So they're mostly mixed in, but they had, if you go into any section or any Barnes & Noble, the manga section will be right next to the YA, which I think is pretty cool. But that's also because a lot of the manga characters are, guess it, 16 or 17.
Yep.
Unless you're reading about the adult stuff. Even then, they might be 16 or 17. Ugh. Anyway, so now that we've like come to now, young adult is so huge and so prevalent that I feel like most, I guess, I don't want to say most, because Marissa goes to different sections of Barnes & Noble than I do. But a lot of the stuff that I follow and a lot of the stuff that I know is still so strongly young adult coded that even like it's branched out into new adult.
Yeah.
And it's branched out to romantasy even. So you still don't have like these young characters, but you still have like the similar adventures or storylines of, you know, discovering oneself or learning about, their place in the world, but they're just a little bit more adult. Because none of these characters that I read in adult books have a 9-to-5 job. Or if they do, they lose their 9-to-5 job to go on an adventure.
Read The House on the Cerulean Sea. He's got a 9-to-5 job.
Now I'm so curious.
Now we need to know.
No.
Right.
It's, I get it. I think the thing that I like about having that young adult section is it kind of gives me that warning of like, hey, this is going to be more geared towards teenagers. So I, a lot of the times, will go over to the fiction section or the science fiction section, look in it. You're still going to have some young adult over there, but it's going to be a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
I also learned when I'm looking for books that if I can't find the book I'm looking for in the fiction and science fiction, and then I go over to young adult and it's over there, I'm like, do I really want to read it? We'll see.
But there are some people that are confused because, like, for instance, Jay Kristoff, he did young adult books with Amy Kaufman. So a lot of booksellers will put his adult books, very, very graphic adult books, in the young adult. And he always, like, maybe once a month, will take a picture of it and post on his stories and say, like, that's not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Technically, New Adult was coined in 2009.
Wow, that old. I thought it was like within the last 10 years.
That's when it was coined, but it wasn't really officially like marketed and noticed until more recently. I think it said 2014. But yeah, it was. I could be wrong. I'm totally probably pulling that as a wrong number, and you guys can correct me if I am wrong. Listeners, tell me what time it was actually notified and noticed. But 2009 was when it was officially coined, and it was because it was due to the fact that St. Martin's Press was launching a writing contest seeking fictions with protagonists slightly older than typical young adult characters. So they wanted people 18 to 29.
Oh, that's really cool. See, that's kind of like where I do want to have my reading, my characters be. I want them to be able to do adult things, but I don't want them to, know how the world works. I still like a little bit of naivete in my characters.
Yeah. It says that defining characteristics are they focus on characters 18 to 29 range and navigating issues like leaving home, developing sexuality, and career choices for a new adult.
I don't care about career choices.
Like,
I don't care about that. I have to do that on my own.
I have this cool little, actually, I'll post it when we post this, the thing for this, but I have like a timeline for young adult literature that I took a picture. And it says the 60s are the beginning. It talks about the outsiders. The first golden age is the 70s. The 80s are market growth. Authors moving past problem novels and start writing a variety of genres, like Sweet Valley High becomes a best-selling series. The 90s are when the classics are born. The 2000s were the second golden age.
I agree
Several
with that.
huge bestsellers helped contribute to a large expansion in young adult literature. There's an increase in over 400% of the number of young adult titles published in the early 2000s. This is a golden age of vampires and dystopian novels.
Yep.
The Pince Award is actually introduced in the early 2000s.
Oh, cool.
The 2010s, representation matters.
Yes.
So that's when we start having the market explodes with representation and discussions. The importance of representation challenges authors and publishers to focus on diversity and inclusion.
So basically 40 years after young adult was coined is when now it matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But
Well, what, thousands of years later from when society is introduced?
listen, is there any...
Honestly, really, it was the fall of Rome. That's where it all starts.
That's our teaser clip. It started at the fall of Rome.
Because you think about it, like, the Roman army was all about, like, or was it the Greek army? I think it was the Roman army. They were the ones that had the pairings that were, like, you don't know about this?
No.
The, like,
Teach me some history.
They were encouraged to, like, each soldier was encouraged to have a relationship with another soldier, because if two of them were in love, or they had that, like, physical connection, they would be more willing to fight and die for one another, which made them stronger.
Wow.
So there was...
So it all started with the Romans.
So it all started with the fall of Rome. When we got rid of that. And it was supposed to be like a whole thing of like the army would go off and like, you know, it was encouraged out in war, and you'd still have like your wives at home and stuff like that because you still had to repopulate the earth and whatnot. But like while you're out at war, heck yeah, free for all.
So Madeline Miller,
Mm-hmm.
Song of Achilles.
Yep.
She knew what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
yeah.
And then ever since Rome, well, that's when the homophobia started.
Well, I think this is going to be a bit of a short episode, but that's totally fine. We can have a bit of a shorter one.
Jenna, do you have more stuff to talk about?
No, I think that this one, it's kind of cool. This one, we have a lot of like history stuff and all of that, but I think that like, what would be interesting for me is like, we kind of have talked in the past like about what we used to read as kids, but what do you think, like, what would you say that your experience with young adult literature was like?
Right, because I talked about I wanted the fantasy and the adventure, and
Right.
you got the more contemporary.
Yeah.
How about you, Marissa? What did you have growing up?
I read a lot of what Jenna was reading already, so because I was the younger sister, so I was just trying to read. I would just pick up whatever book she had. That's how I got into Twilight, because she read Twilight, and the Maximum Ride, because she read Maximum Ride.
Did you read it at the same age that she was, or were
No.
you a lot younger?
I was
then?
younger, because
Okay.
Jenna would read it, and then
you
I would read
immediately.
it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I read it, so if Jenna was like, 15 when she was reading something, I was like 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, like, I guess as I grew older, I did get my own books. A lot of my reading when I was in high school was required reading. Stuff that I did like in required reading, stuff that I didn't. I'm trying to even think of, like, what did I read in high school? Because I don't know if I read as much in high school. Because that's the time when Jenna and I had a rift in our relationship. And
Is when
Because
she,
I was grown
when she
up.
moved out.
Yeah. Because she was dating boys and
Gross.
Yeah.
Jenna.
I was being a new adult.
Yeah.
You were still in the young adult.
she was discovering herself and her career path and
And you were still stuck on, what was it, menstruation and, hang on. what was it?
Masturbation.
Masturbation and teen sex. Thanks,
Not
Judy.
at all.
And birth control. Thanks, Judy Bloom.
not
and
at all.
drugs. But Marissa actually was the only one that didn't experiment with drugs in our family.
I was the boring. Well, no, the thing was is I saw how it messed up you and Jake, so I stopped.
I wasn't
Or I
nearly
didn't
as
even
messed
start.
up as Jake.
That's true, but still. No,
You and me, Marissa.
high school I did theater, so I wasn't
Shakespeare.
reading as much. No, Shakespeare. I didn't like Shakespeare as much in high school. There was a couple things that
Interesting.
there were things that I liked. I liked the poetry. I liked the sonnets. And then I liked Twelfth Night, but everything else I didn't really like that
So
Shakespeare
you
did.
liked the romantic stuff and one comedy. Is 12th Night comedy or is it a drama?
It's a comedy.
Yes,
Okay.
comedy.
Yeah.
Wait, is 12th Night the gender bend one?
Yeah.
Okay. This says so much about your personality. I love it.
To be fair, too, the sonnet I really liked was it 116? Is that the one that?
Yes. 116. Yes, of course.
Megan knows
Megan
exactly.
loves. That's the one
Can
where
you recite it really quick, Megan, for us?
Um,
This would be great if you just popped out with a sonnet. I'm just
I'm just not feeling it right now.
it's the one where he's describing his lover, and it's all of the like opposite of what you would expect from a lover, where it's all like her breath smells terrible, her eyes don't shine, her hair is coarse and like not soft and luscious, and it's like all of these terrible things about her, and it's like, and yet I still think she's as beautiful as any other description that you can come up with.
That is so romantic. I actually really like that.
So the funny thing is sonnet 116 is actually the sonnet that like is my favorite that I still actually can know
now
by
remember
heart,
it. Yeah,
and
I
it is
now
not
remember
the
it.
one that you were doing, but I think yours was 54 if I
Mine's-
remember correctly.
My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are done. If hair be wires, black wires grow on her head.
130.
130. That's it.
Sonnet 130. Mine was 116.
Okay. Well,
let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds, but bends with the remover to remove. Love is an ever fixed mark, which looks on tempests and is never shaken. I can keep going. Let's not do this.
I'm fascinated. I like it.
Bacon's jaw's like on the floor.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, in high school for me, I'm sure I read stuff, like, I'm sure high school was when I read The Hunger Games, or it was pre-high school. But yeah, I don't remember reading as much except for like required reading, and there was certain required reading that I really liked. We can talk about that in another episode, but
yeah.
It's funny. I think that even still, I'm such a mood reader, and I'd say up until probably my 30s, I would still get really into young adult novels. Now it's a little less. There's still times where I'll pick up one and it technically falls in the young adult line, but I'm able to suspend belief and pretend like it's not a 16-year-old usually, and that's when I can get into it again. Mm-hmm. But probably up until I hit 30 or so, I could still read books about kids in high school and stuff like that and enjoy them as much as I would have before.
I could do young adult if it was younger than 16, I think.
Really?
Because, I mean, thinking about it, watching The Dragon Prince.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, he's like, what, 13 when they start the show? So I'm all like, yeah, I like that show because he's a kid. And it's like, he's a kid. It's cute. Yeah. But as soon as they start getting to that, like, I'm an adult stage, I'm like, less cute. Now you're in that weird in-between stage.
Yeah. I think that it's hard for us sometimes to read it and remember being that awkward anyway. And also, it's kind of like seeing an old Facebook post and cringing at yourself and being like, oh, God, I remember being this dumb.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So I can see that. But yeah, I would go through phases. So it'd be like those moments where I'd get a little more contemporary. I talked about in our past episode where we talked about, like, I went through the phase where I just read really, really sad books. Mm-hmm. And then I read books that were a little bit more fantasy. I definitely went through a hard dystopian phase where I read so many dystopian novels. And I think the cool thing with dystopian novels is that it really shows how much could go wrong in society and what we can see as like people using as an excuse to like oppress us. And it's so interesting how easily that can turn, and yet how we're okay with it.
The thing is, yeah, I really like dystopian novels, and I know it's kind of past that fad now, and one of the reasons why I'm writing a dystopian novel is because it's kind of that idea of like government sucks in general.
Yeah.
And so like you have all these different ways people can think of a different type of government, whether it has already been established as a type of government, like we go back to monarchy or whatever it might be, or tyranny or whatever it is, and then figuring out how that government. So I think, going into it a little bit, I think it's two ways of looking at a dystopian novel is either, look, it could be a lot worse, or look, this is what we're going through just on an exaggerated scale.
Right.
And so I think that's what I like about dystopian novels, is that I like when it's reflecting what we're actually going through on an exaggerated scale, because it gives us a way of fighting back that's not just like protests and like smaller scale fighting back. It's like being able to let your rage out, like going to a
passive-aggressive
rage room.
Facebook posts.
Yeah.
Misinformation.
Like, not to get political in here, but there's different ways that people fight politically in the real world.
Right.
Which are all legitimate in their own way, and I'm not going to go into any of them to get us into anything like that. But there are ways to do it in the real world. When you do it in a dystopian novel, it's a way of, like, going to a rage room and being able to just smash something without consequences.
Yeah. Cutting the actual head off of the beast.
Exactly. So it's that way to let out your frustration.
Yeah. It makes the solution feel a lot more simple and satisfying in a way.
Yeah.
Than how complicated it actually is to have change in the world.
Exactly.
And I also think that it's the thing about dystopian novels is that it sparks this rage in us that, like, how dare they make children fight to the death? How dare they outlaw love or make everyone feel like they have to turn pretty in the uglies, you know? Like, it's like this, they're oppressing us, and it sparks this, like, need in us to, like, fight back. And so it really does bring a lot of emotion, which we've talked about before with, I think, when we were talking about books that are our rating system and books that really sit with us. I think that's the thing about dystopian novels. That's why Hunger Games, like, even though it's been how many years since Hunger Games has come out? Like almost 10?
Over 10, I believe.
Yeah.
The first book, I think, came out in 2008.
Okay, yeah. So we're almost at 20 years. And it's like, people still talk about it. And we're getting another Hunger Games book coming out, you know,
Next
this
month.
year. It's next month. And it's like, it's still so prevalent because it really brings such emotion out of us, and it makes us want to fight back, I think.
Yeah.
And it gives us the satisfaction of feeling like the fight actually goes somewhere.
Right.
And I think that, going back onto the topic of the episode of, like, young adults, I think that's something that teenagers have a bit more in them than adults do, because, like you said at the beginning of this episode, of, like, you kind of get set in your ways when you become an adult, so it's harder for you to fight back.
Right.
Because you're kind of like, oh, well, I've lived in this for so long. Where when you're a teenager, you have that, like, I'm young, I can make a difference, I can do this change.
Yeah,
so.
I can be the change in the world.
Exactly.
They're not jaded.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting.
Yeah. It's important too. It really is. It's something that we want young kids to feel that way. We want them to be empowered. We want them to want to be the change in the world. But it's crazy how quickly, you know, you become part of the system, and it really does change your views on things.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, we had a pretty good discussion, I'd say.
Yeah.
So, Marissa, you did have a lot to say, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Thanks.
It took her a little while, but she came in with the quips and one-liners.
Yeah. I also love that you are a good balance to, like, say me. If it was just me and you, we're so polarized, but then Jenna is like the in-between of, yeah, I could swing both ways.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I thought we have a good, well-rounded group here.
Yeah.
So, before we sign off, what are you guys currently reading?
I picked up, I'm not all the way through it because I'm kind of picking it up and putting it down, but Brian Bilston's You Took the Last Bus Home. I talked about that, I think, last episode, that I had ordered it and it went to Jenna's house.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a poetry book, and it's good. Like a lot of poetry books, there are some that are really good, and then some that are, you know, I could skip this poem and go to the next one.
Yeah.
But, no, I like it because it's funny and quippy and, you know, quirky.
Very fun.
Yeah.
How about you, Jenna?
I am actually between books right now. I just finished Onyx Storm. Technically, so while I was reading Onyx Storm, my Libby had Storm Dancer come through by Jay Kristoff, and I said, yes, totally, let's do it, because I thought I'd be a lot quicker with Onyx Storm, and it took me forever, so I have 9 days left to read Jay Kristoff's Storm Dancer, and I've read 2 chapters of it, and now the anxiety of only having 9 days to finish this book is, like, eating at me. So I'm like, maybe I just release this and place the hold again, because I don't do well under pressure.
Yeah. Is someone waiting in line behind you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then
So, so I was like, I have this, like, anxiety of, like, I'm going to get into it and I'm not going to be able to finish it. So I may release that one and come back to it. So technically, I'm up in the air right now. I don't know. Me and Megan were just discussing. I was like, I kind of really want a romance, because technically it's February. This might come out in March. I'm not sure. Can't really.
Good question.
But technically it's February, and I just want a romance book.
Well, I am reading on topic in order to prepare for the next Hunger Games book, The Sunrise on the Reaping. I read Hunger Games last month, and this month I have Catching Fire, so I'm currently I think I only have like an hour left of it. And I forgot how much takes place outside of the arena.
Yeah.
And like you don't even get to the arena until like 70% of the book.
Yeah.
And I forgot about that, even though I've seen the movie a billion times. But yeah, so I was just like, huh, interesting.
I thought you were going to say in preparation you were reading A Ballad of Songbird and Snakes.
That's next. Well, after Mockingjay.
Yeah, because I haven't read it yet, so.
Yeah.
I do want to read it. I've watched the movie, and now I want to read the book, so.
Yes. I also watched the movie, felt they had zero chemistry on screen, but I want to see the chemistry in the book, so.
I've heard he's worse in the book.
I hear he's terrible in the book.
That's why I want to read it now.
I know.
When it first came out, I was like, I don't want to read a book about snow. Why would I read a book about snow? And then I watched the movie, and I was like, oh, that's actually okay. Kind of interesting. I'm interested to see
I think
she
I just
makes it.
loved her in the movie.
I
loved her so much
I liked
in the movie.
her a lot.
And then he was, whatever. But then I've heard he's way worse in the book. And I was like, I must know, but I had to let enough time pass so that I wasn't comparing it strictly to the movie.
Yeah, exactly. So
Plus, the movie had such a good soundtrack.
It did. It had a great soundtrack.
Ooh.
Loved the soundtrack.
I only watched the movie once. I also, I actually was talking to our friend Haley about it because she had just watched the movie because she just finished the book as well. And I was like, there was something uncanny valley about his face, like the actor's face, and the way that they like gave him contacts and did his hair or something that I didn't like looking at him. But then I saw a picture of him like in real life with brown hair and like a little bit of scruff, and I was like, he's so hot. What did they do to him that I just felt so uncomfortable? Like, did they do it on purpose for me to not like him on purpose? But I didn't like watching him. So I did not like the movie because I was like, there's no chemistry. I don't like looking at him. What's the
That's
point?
kind of how I felt. So,
But I'll watch it again for the soundtrack.
Mortal Instruments, Jace, the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I could look at him there, but he's Vecna in Stranger Things.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't. I was like, this is creepy, and I don't like it. Don't look at me. Like, no, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I found out I was the same actor, I'm like, what? Like, I was able to watch you as a romantic lead. What? But yeah.
Yeah. He's very versatile.
Yeah.
Okay, I have found us a quote, and this is from Christopher Paolini, who wrote Aragon, which was like the epitome of young adult, another pioneer in the young adult book world. And it is, books are my friends, my companions. They make me laugh and cry and find meaning in life. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us on our little history lesson today.
Yeah.
And good job, Jenna.
Hey, history and homework.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.